Welcome to Trial of the Hollywood Sex Therapist Killer, the harrowing and tragic story of Dr. Amie Harwick, who met a tragic end when she was allegedly thrown off her third-floor balcony by her stalker and ex-boyfriend, Gareth Pursehouse. Found clinging to life, but later succumbing to her injuries, Amie's death has raised many questions, with answers to be revealed in court. Join us as we dive deep into the ongoing trial of Gareth Pursehouse, the man accused of this heinous act, and as we seek justice for Amie.
Please raise your right hand. You solemnly state that the testimony you're about to give and the cause now pending before this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do so swear.
Thank you. Please have a seat. Please state and spell both your first and last name.
Natasha Paulson, Natasha Paulson.
Miss Mariano.
Hi. Do you know somebody by the name of Gareth Pursehouse?
By name, yes.
And what do you mean by name?
I mean that we haven't met in person, but we've conversed through text messages and we've spoken on the phone.
And if you could do me a favor, could you move just a little closer to the mic so that we can hear
How's
you?
that?
Better.
Okay.
Thank you. So could you repeat your answer so that we can hear you?
Oh, sorry. We've communicated through actually a dating app Hinge through text messages, and we had one conversation on the phone.
Let's talk about the dating app Hinge.
Okay.
Describe how it is that you met somebody by the name of Gareth Pursehouse on this app.
So the way that Hinge works is either party can contact whoever they're seeking. It's not like Bumble to where only the woman can reach out first. With Hinge, you have the ability to leave comments on photos or any of the texts that the other person has placed in their profile. And that's sort of the way to open up the conversation. And then if you're interested, you can respond back. That's how we got started. I believe he reached out first.
Now, on this Hinge dating app, are you able to see photographs of the person that you're speaking to?
Yes.
And did you see any photographs associated with the Hinge profile belonging to someone by the name of Gareth Pursehouse?
Yes, I did.
Here at this time, that people are holding what appears to be a profile picture in the name Gareth, be that be marked as people's 56. Do you recognize this photograph depicted in People's 56?
Yes, I do.
And how do you recognize that?
This was his Facebook profile picture and his Hinge profile picture.
And do you see the person that's depicted in this photograph in court today?
Yes, I do.
Could you please identify that person by tell us where that person is seated and what that person is wearing?
He is the second person from the right in the front row here, wearing a navy blazer and what looks like a white polo with dark hair and glasses.
All right, identify them fine.
Now, I know you said that you met on Hinge. Did you initially start communicating through the application itself?
Yes, initially.
And did that communication turn into other forms of communication?
Yes, it did.
What forms of communication?
We exchanged phone numbers and started texting, and we had one phone call.
Now, I'm going to show, you said that you communicated on the actual app itself.
Yes.
Laura, at this time I'm holding another page saying Gareth on the top with what it appears to be an exchange of messages. Did that be marked as People's 57?
Yes.
Show you what's been marked as People's 57. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And how do you recognize that?
That is a photograph of myself on the Hinge app, and that is Gareth's response to me below.
Where it says Morticia Adams with a happy face, Albie Gomez?
Yes.
When did you start communicating on Hinge?
I believe we matched on Tuesday the 11th, and I know for a fact that we started texting and we had our phone call on Tuesday the 11th of 2020.
So would you say you started communicating throughout other means aside from the application immediately after meeting on Hinge?
Yes.
And that was through text messages?
Text messaging and then one phone call.
Do you have to exchange phone numbers in order to do that?
You do. For Hinge, I'm not sure if there's a call function through it, but we did not use that. We used our cell phones.
So you actually had to actively exchange phone numbers to do that?
Correct.
At this time, Your Honor, I'm holding another photograph of a series of text messages that be marked as People's 58.
Yeah.
I'm showing you what's been marked as People's 50. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And how do you recognize that?
This was our first text exchange, and after the gotcha, I believe is when we had our first phone call.
Now I'm showing you these text messages here on the left that appear to be lighter in color. Are those text messages that you received from the defendant?
Yes, they are.
And as to the ones on the right side with a darker background, are those text messages that you sent?
Yes, they are.
And you said these are text messages that you exchanged on Tuesday, February 11th?
Correct.
Now at the top here, there's a phone number. Is that the phone number that was given to you by the defendant to communicate?
Yes, it is.
Now, was this phone number always labeled on your phone as such?
No, at one point I did change it to his name, but when I took these text messages to send in, I changed it back to the phone number.
Now, you said at some point you also exchanged a phone call on the same day that you initially exchanged text messages.
Correct.
Is that correct? And that was around after the time the text message you sent said, gotcha.
Correct.
Now, I also want to talk to you about further communication you had with the defendant. Did that continue past February 11th?
Yes, it did.
And that was also through text message?
Yes, it was.
I want to talk to you about Valentine's Day of 2020, February 14th.
Okay.
Did you exchange text messages with the defendant on that day?
Yes, we did.
Your Honor, at this time, the people are holding 2 pages of a series of text messages. May that be marked as People's...
59.
Yes.
All right.
I'm showing you what's been marked as People's 59. Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
And how do you recognize this?
This was the part of the text message exchange that we had on Valentine's Day.
I'm showing you the first text message exchange here, Happy Valentine's Day. Was that received by you
Yes, it was.
from the defendant?
Correct.
And at what time?
It was at 12:02 p.m.
Now there is a text message here in blue. Hello there, apologies. It's been nonstop trying to get today's collection up in the shop so it can be purchased. How are you? Is that a text message sent by you to the defendant?
Correct.
And that was at what time?
5:55 p.m.
There's another text message. Oh, that's totally fine. Busy woman. I'm good, Jess. Also trying to get everything under the sun done. Happy face. Is this a text message you received from the defendant?
Yes, it is.
And where it says, I just finished, Lordy, is that a text message to the defendant?
Yes, it is.
Turning to the second page, do you recognize these text messages?
Yes, I do.
Are these a continuation of the messages that we were just reading?
Yes, they are.
There's a text message that reads, Yippee. Is that from the defendant to you?
Yes, it is.
Now there's another message here. Watching dudes pick out last-minute flowers at the market is amusing. If you catch their eye, they give you a help look and some sort of laughing emoji. Is that a text message you sent to the defendant?
Yes, it is.
And at what time was that?
10:48 p.m.
Now, did you get a response from the defendant?
Not immediately, but yes, I did.
And when did you receive that response?
February 15 at 1:57 a.m.
And that response is, ha ha, that's funny.
Correct.
Is that the last communication that you received from the defendant?
That I received, yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Nothing further.
Prosecution.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. Paulson.
Good afternoon.
You reached out to the detectives on the 17th of February of 2020, right?
Correct.
And so your communication with them was initiated by you.
Yes, it was.
You suffered a head injury, right?
That is correct.
And you lost a lot of your memories from 2020.
Yes, I did.
Sorry that happened to you. When did your memory loss? Was it actually amnesia? Is that how it was?
Correct, retrograde amnesia.
When did that, to what point did that affect your memories?
So the span of my amnesia begins near mid to late March of 2020.
After reaching out to the detectives on the 17th of February 2020, you had a phone call with a Detective Masterson on April 25th, 2020.
That is incorrect. I spoke with Detective Luis Carranza.
It was with Detective Carranza, okay. And it was on the 25th of April, 2020, right?
I actually do not remember the day that he and I spoke, but I do remember that we spoke.
Okay. That conversation was not recorded.
Not to my knowledge.
You had a meeting on the 29th of August of this year with Miss Mariano and with Detective Carranza.
That is correct.
And then that was in person, right?
Correct.
And that was also not recorded.
Not to my knowledge.
The timestamp that your testimony on direct about what time the messages were sent and received, you're relying on what the phone says, right?
I'm sorry, could you clarify your question?
Earlier with your direct testimony with Miss Mariano, you were asked, what time a message was sent, what time a message was received. Your understanding of when a message was sent or received is based on what the timestamp is on your phone.
Yes, correct.
It wasn't like, you were sitting there, saw the message, looked at your watch.
No.
Okay. Thank you. That's great.
Any regrets?
So, Ms. Paulson, I just want to be clear. Any sort of amnesia you may have suffered as a result of an accident takes place after these events. Is that correct?
Over a month after. I mean, the actual amnesia itself does not start until over a month after.
And when did that accident occur?
When did the accident occur?
Yes.
It was January 27th, 2021.
So after you had met the defendant on Hinge, is that correct?
Correct.
After you had had a conversation with Detective Carranza regarding your interaction with the defendant on April 23rd, 2020.
Correct.
And so your memory loss that you've suffered dates from March 2020, after this incident, to what time frame?
I would say approximately maybe February-ish. The thing with amnesia and when it tapers off, it's not, the way that it's measured is not so concrete as the onset, and the severity is measured by how much you've lost. So I can pinpoint at least one of my last solid memories, which would be at least March 15th, 16th, 17th of 2020. And then it continues through to about February or March of 2021.
So after all of these events?
Yes, correct.
Thank you, nothing further.
Anything?
No, you're...
All right, you may step down. Thank you. Pete? Sorry?
Next witness?
Yes.
People call Guy Holloman to the stand.
All right. All right, Mr. Holloman, if you could raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly state that the testimony you're about to give and the cause now pending before this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please have a seat. Please state and spell both your first and last name.
First name is Guy, spelled G-U-Y. Last name is Holloman, H-O-L-L-O-M-A-N.
All right, Mr. Harwick.
Yes, Mr. Holloman, can you please tell the jury what it is that you do for a living?
Sure. I'm employed by the City of Los Angeles, Los Angeles Police Department, Forensic Science Division, as a supervising criminalist.
And can you briefly describe your education, training, and experience to be the supervisor of that particular unit?
Sure. I hold a bachelor's degree in molecular and cell biology from UC Berkeley, and I've had the required training for all of the assigned units that I've served in over the years, DNA, field investigation, as well as narcotics analysis.
How many years have you been a criminalist?
I've been with the department almost 23 years. First years as a lab tech, so almost 22 years.
And how many years as a supervisor?
This October will be 6 years.
Do you supervise, back in 2020, did you supervise criminalist Philip Nahn?
Yeah, I did.
And was he part of your unit?
Yes, sir.
And drawing your attention to the date of February 26, 2020, back then the detectives from West Bureau Homicide, specifically Detective Scott Masterson, contact you about a syringe with liquid that they wanted your unit to analyze.
He did.
And was that a syringe that's here, shown on People's Exhibit number 55, photograph D?
That is correct.
And was Philip Nahn assigned to analyze the liquid within that syringe?
He was.
Okay. And did you receive the results of the analysis?
I did.
And how about his graphs and his library searches to try to determine what was inside that liquid?
Yes.
Did you review all those documents?
Yes.
And did you find out that it tested negative for any controlled substances?
Correct.
But there appear to be other possible chemicals there.
That's correct.
Well, I have another question without getting specifics about what other substances. Go ahead.
Yeah, the answer stands.
Looking at Defense Exhibit double N, page 7. You reviewed these documents also as part of Mr. Nahn's analysis?
Yes, sir, I have.
Okay, and looking here at page 7, one of the possible chemicals could have been nicotine.
That is correct.
It could have also been pyridine?
Pyridine.
Pyridine, correct?
That is correct.
And did you, after you received the results that there were no controlled substances in the liquid of that syringe, what did you tell the detectives, if anything?
Well, I told the detectives that the laboratory had the capabilities of detecting controlled substances, and that for anything else contained in that evidentiary item, that he could request at another lab test for any non-controlled substances that might be in that syringe.
Like a nicotine?
Correct.
And why couldn't your lab test for nicotine?
Well, our lab is set up to detect controlled substances, and nicotine is not a controlled substance. We don't have what's called a nicotine reference standard to compare the unknown sample to. So that's why we could not confirm the presence of nicotine in that particular sample.
Nor could you confirm the other chemicals that were shown in the syringe.
That is correct.
And so did you recommend that the detectives take the liquid from that syringe and have it tested by another lab?
Yes.
And which lab did you recommend?
I mentioned the Federal Bureau of Investigation, that their laboratory might have the capabilities of confirming nicotine or non-controlled substances within the syringe.
Why did you recommend the FBI?
I knew that they possibly would test for a larger battery of chemicals that our lab was not capable of confirming.
I have nothing further on.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Holland.
Good afternoon, sir.
There we go. Can I just sit up here? So, your lab can, as in this case, can be asked to test to try to see what is in an unknown substance.
That's correct.
Just going to remove this. And there are specific policies and procedures that are in place for that exact situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's what happened in this case, right?
Objection vague as to what happened in this case?
A test was done for an unknown substance.
Correct.
Gas chromatography mass spectrometry, GCMS, it's an extremely reliable method for identifying compounds.
Yes.
It's something it's a really well-established analytical tool for criminalists.
That is correct.
It's something that all criminalists in your lab are expected to be able to perform.
No, not necessarily. If there's training required to be able to operate the instrument properly, to maintain it properly, and to analyze the data that comes from that. So there's a training component there. Obviously, once you're trained and found competent in the use of the instrument, then you're at that point expected to be able to use it during analysis.
And GCMS has been in use in your labs in your entire professional career?
Yeah, as far as I can remember, yes.
So I'd like to talk about a procedure that it appears that you actually approved it yourself. This is TM-NAU-400 GC/MS. Are you familiar with that?
I am.
And specifically on page 4, there is a sample preparation guideline for unknown substances.
Page 4 of what?
Of this procedure. This is not an exhibit, Your Honor.
Okay.
Or this procedure that you approved. One of the ways that you begin testing an unknown substance.
Vegas to this procedure. Vegas to time. The procedure he approved when?
Well, I take it. Do you know what he's talking about?
I'm not sure yet.
Okay,
Sort of.
sustain. Go ahead.
Okay, you're familiar with this procedure that I read the name of it earlier. TM-NAU-400.
I'm familiar with it. Yes. Sir.
Yes. And this procedure is a procedure that is in place to make sure that testing is done correctly in the lab. Right?
Absolutely.
And it was in place in March of 2020.
Correct.
There is a specific section in this procedure that relates to how to or what requirements are in place to indicate.
Right.
Okay. And what that means, indicate, is that the GCMS test would indicate the presence of a substance, right?
Correct.
So under this procedure, what happens is the sample must be compared to a spectrum of the reference material of a GCMS library or published spectrum, right?
That's correct.
And just to kind of make it less technical, what we're talking about is when a sample is tested by the GCMS instrument, it produces the instrument produces the results of the test, right?
Correct.
And then what this is talking about is taking those results of the test and then comparing them against libraries of chemical compounds.
Yes.
Okay. And so your lab one of the requirements is that the overall appearance of the sample spectrum must be substantially similar to the reference material spectrum, right?
Correct.
And there must be no substantial unexplained extraneous ions.
That is also correct.
So in the technical notes that the criminalist is writing as a part of the GCMS analysis, these notes are required to have, number one, the name of the library being used for comparison, right?
Correct.
And it says the multiple libraries can be used. The criminalist can search through multiple libraries.
Correct.
Number two, the technical notes need to include...
Let me interrupt you. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and take a 15-minute break, if you will, please.
More of the trial of the Hollywood sex therapist killer is on the way. Press subscribe now so you don't miss a moment of this riveting courtroom drama as we seek justice for Dr. Amie Harwick.